The Rufus Project would like to advise the following podcast contains spoilers for Waterworld from 1995. If you do not wish to have this movie spoilt, please watch it before listening to the following podcast. Is it a refreshing take on the post-apocalyptic genre, or is it just a soggy mess? We watched Waterworld from 1995 to see if we could redeem it. Were we successful? Find out after the theme.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features. Boy? Oh boy.
Hello and welcome to the Rufus Project, this time checking out Waterworld from 1995. I am one of your hosts, Trevor Holland, and I am joined by my good friend, co-host and suggester of Waterworld,
Kristian Fletcher. I don't know if I like that title of suggester. I know it's true, but yeah, we'll have to see how it all pans out.
Well, look, you know we've got to own up to our suggestions.
Oh, I know. And
yeah.
As we've said, this has been a long time coming, and I'm surprised we haven't conquered this earlier. So, never know, it might have been worth the wait.
Yep, see what sort of a splash it made. Ha ha!
Oh, let's see how many water puns we can throw into this.
I don't know. I don't know how thirsty people are for those puns.
Gosh, I've gone blank, so I'm leaving them all for you. But let's find out if we had a whale of a time or not.
Oh, indeed.
Okay.
So, if anyone out there is unaware or hasn't seen Waterworld, I do have a synopsis here for it. In a future where the polar ice caps have melted and Earth is almost entirely submerged, a mutated mariner fights starvation and outlaw smokers, and reluctantly helps a woman and a young girl try to find dry land.
Dun, dun, dun. And I believe the recap, even at the start of the movie, sounds very much like you, Trevor. So,
It is that voice, isn't it?
Good
But
capturing that.
We shall get to the opening narration when we get to the opening narration.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh boy. Anyway, so Waterworld. Before we go talk too much about the movie itself, we got a couple of little categories we'd like to cover over. First of all, we need to look at how it fared come awards time. Now, this was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Sound. It was nominated for a BAFTA Award for Best Achievement in Special Effects. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films nominated it for a Saturn Award for Best Science Fiction Film and Best Costumes. And the Czech Lions Award, it won the Box Office Award.
So, is no raspberries have come into this?
Well, let's just say that the Razzies.
They had to make an appearance with this movie.
It was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Kevin Costner, and Worst Director for Kevin Reynolds, with more than a little unasked for assistance from Kevin Costner as a subtitle on that one. And it won the Worst Supporting Actor for Dennis Hopper. And at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, it was nominated for Worst Picture, and Kevin Costner was nominated for Worst Actor.
Wow, when your movie goes from the stinkers to the raspberries, you know it's pretty much across the board. But look, I remember when this movie came out, and it was such a big, I suppose, hurrah before it came out. Of course, we find out that it bombed later on, and as we will chat about, we'll probably see why. But yeah, this had quite a big marketing and ad campaign, I do remember. So it was it was very much in the psyche. So I can see why this would have got the attention of the raspberries, and being released by a major studio like Universal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it was there was posters and had billboards with Kevin Costner in front of water everywhere.
And we believed, and I think at the time, I may be wrong, but it was quoted as being one of the most expensive movies ever made at the time. I might be wrong, but a lot was said about its big budget in the lead up to it.
It was certainly up there when it came to budget. So that probably leads us nicely to our turkey trivia. where we do talk turkey about the movie and, well, trivia. Like, not much else I can say about that, is there? So, this is rated 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. It had a budget of $175 million, and it ended up taking worldwide about $264 million.
Oh, so it wasn't exactly the dud, but we aren't taking in consideration the extensive marketing campaign they would have had. So it probably barely scraped in.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you allow for the whole, it really needs to make back double to be considered a success. It needed to get up around the $350 million mark. So, I mean, it did moderately, I guess you could say.
Well, very ambitious for a studio too, especially with something of this subject matter. Like I'm sure in your trivia, I don't know if this exists, but is it based on a book? Is it, an original concept?
Yeah, I've got my theories about what it's based on, but we shall get to those later. Now, to talk some trivia, Kevin Costner insisted that his friend Kevin Reynolds be given the director's position, or he was going to quit.
Oh, wow. So, but it sounds like even as you mentioned earlier, when you mentioned Kevin Reynolds and slashed Kevin Costner, I believe Kevin probably would have had a lot more say in this than his star title on the movie. Said. So I think he probably would have had a lot to do with this. And the fact too that you say that he would quit if Kevin left, probably because Kevin would actually listen to what he said and do what he said.
Well, let's just get on to my next bit of trivia then. Shall we?
Good segues.
It is rumored that director Kevin Reynolds and Kevin Costner had a huge squabble over the film, resulting in Reynolds walking off the project and left Costner to finish it. Reynolds was quoted as saying, "Kevin should only star in movies he directs. That way he can work with his favorite actor and favorite director."
Probably giving an insight into possibly an ego there, but you do wonder how many scenes Kevin Costner ended up actually filming, or which parts out of the movie he actually did.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, I guess it was Kevin Costner's baby, because apparently he also stayed in an oceanfront villa with a butler, chef, and a private swimming pool, which cost about $4,500 per night. Crew members were first forced to live in uninsulated condominiums that were subject to temperature swings of up to 50 degrees. So apparently the inequity of accommodations contributed to on-set hostility and low morale.
So all these parts when they're trying to kill Kevin Costner, it was probably based in fact.
I think so. And probably adding to the budget, not only was his private villa, he also demanded that the VX crew hide his receding hairline digitally, which was pretty expensive back in 1995.
Yeah, because I was even thinking as I watched it, because you can tell a lot of parts where it was filmed in a tank and there's a lot of green screen, especially at the end. But I was wondering if it was sort of pre-CGI, but that's sort of given me an insight into it.
There's a few bits with the CGI pop in this movie. Let's just put it that
yeah,
way.
I'm probably stupid for not having noticed, but I do. My reason for my suggesting of this movie, having gone to Universal Studios and they took us on the back lot there and showed us the huge tank, and it's kind of hard to watch a movie thinking the whole time I know where that was filmed and it's not on the ocean. But even though I'm sure that I think I saw in the credits that it was filmed in Hawaii, which I believe probably would be the scenes near the end, and probably where Kevin Costner's villa was. I don't know.
I'd say that would be the case. Now this movie is widely considered a box office bomb, even though it ended up doing all right. But it even got nicknamed Kevin's Gate, a la Heaven's Gate, and to a nice callback for us, it also got subtitled Fishtar.
Oh yeah,
in comparison to Ishtar.
I'd laugh about that. I'm like, oh, only certain people who actually watched that would get that, unfortunately. But yeah, and it does seem to. I not to steal your thunder about what you were going to say later on, but yeah, there is a movie that I think it does rip off very liberally from, and is very much a version on water of. So but not saying too much, but yeah, it's not necessarily doing anything new, but the post-apocalyptic genre, hey, they've been making them for years, but whether they've made good or bad ones, I don't know.
Very, very true. So before we do go into the movie itself, we need to set ourselves a baseline. So here on the Rufus Project, if this is your first listen, what we do is we check out these movies with either bombed or have less than stellar reputations to see if we can find them redeemable. That's the general gist of the podcast. So we need to set ourselves a baseline. So I headed off to Amazon and I found myself a review that I think shows what we're working from. The title of this review is Spare Yourself. It was agonizing to watch and it got worse by the minute. I had to stop at the 37-minute mark. It was too awful to continue. Thankfully, I had only paid $2.99 for a 24-hour rental. 1 star.
That does sum it up pretty well. I mean, as in a baseline, not giving anything away. But
Yes.
yeah, that's interesting. And that's actually one thing that I forgot to mention earlier that this guy's kind of hit on the head is it is quite a long film. And I do apologise, and I should have apologised in advance, Trevor, when I suggested this. 2 hours 15 is way too long for most movies, probably especially ones that we might feel about like this. So, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, it was quite a long one.
That's all right. I've got to say, this guy, he got past, he had that 1.5 hours to go after giving up after that long. Yeah, that was, it certainly is a lengthy movie. I won't comment too much more about that at the moment. But yes, it goes on. Anyway, and yeah, the first thing I thought, though, when it started up and the Universal logo came up, knowing what I know about the movie, being this was my first watching, I was thinking, gee, the world looks pretty normal in the logo from here. Then it's, oh wait.
Yeah.
And, I still do find it cool when they take the studio logo and do something with it.
Yeah, like I liked how the globe turned and ended up becoming a recap of what was happening in Earth at the time. It was and a really, like we mentioned the recap earlier, and the very official voice. But the good thing about it too, with the recap, sorry, moving on from the globe really quickly, is the recap was so quick. You know how normally you've got some really boring long opening scroll, or we've seen some movies where it's like almost a 5-minute narrative at the start. I liked how it was short and sweet because really there was nothing much to say. The polar ice caps had melted and the world was now water. There really isn't that much more to say because we were visually going to see what was, I suppose, left of the people.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, though, normally when they have someone do a narration at the start, it turns out to be one of the characters in the movie. But no, it was just like, I am the narrator. I'm going to set the scene for you and then leave, never to return.
Maybe it's a voice from the future telling us a story about what happened in the past. I don't know.
Maybe it was the kid's dad.
Oh yeah, that could be it too.
So he kind of comes back at the end.
Yeah, in some way. Oh, he's skin and bone though. Anyway, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, bone. But yeah, for a big blockbuster movie and a star vehicle for Kevin Costner, it sure starts classy with a bit of pee recycling.
Oh, it's funny because I had never seen this movie before, but I do remember that scene. So I must have just seen it on TV. This stuck in mind, as it would. So we see the very, I suppose, elaborate purifier he's put together. And that's the one thing I do like about this movie is, and in a lot of this post-apocalyptic stuff, how they work in contraptions and make them kind of cool and things like that. Not saying that I'm giving this movie too much credit for that, but it was cool the things that they've managed to develop by living on water.
Yeah, I've got to admit, some of the set designs and some of the ideas, and the way that they'd set up cogs and wheels and counterweights to do all this mechanical stuff. Like, after a bit of we get lots of close-ups of Kevin Costner's boat at the very, very start, and they're not particularly interesting ones. They're just like, look at this now, because in a little bit he's going to pull some levers and some cool stuff's going to happen. But right now, these are bits of a boat doing nothing. Enjoy.
And it's it's things like that would have probably contributed to this movie being longer than it should have. It's like every shot like that was trying to go, okay, we better get our money's worth. But the problem was that even though a lot of these sort of set pieces and stuff whilst interesting, it wasn't necessarily high tech enough to warrant this big budget movie. I don't know. That's what hit me from the start, and it never sort of changed. It was lacking that kind of pizzazz. Not that a movie like that should have pizzazz, but it was just lacking that excitement from the outset. This very grey and blue world that we sort of have entered into.
Yeah, well, pizzazz. You get the bit at the very, very start where Kevin Costner comes out from underwater. He climbs up onto the side of the boat and then does a somersault for no good reason. There's a bit of pizzazz for you.
Hey, he's probably a bit bored. He's got to do something. And as we find out a little bit later, he is quite the swimmer. But I don't want to reveal any plot points there. But like you see things like he's growing limes and then pretty much, the good thing is they don't waste too much time on that before, or aside from the shots of the boat, before the jet ski crooks come in, which I always like. I don't know if it was in this part here, but I do like when they are released sort of from ropes underwater, when they're hiding. There's sort of clever little touches they do like that, but that's pretty much all they've got going for them. I think they're called smokers, I've got jet ski crooks here.
That's right, they're called smokers because they're the only ones on stuff that runs on oil and petrol, and it leaves a cloud of smoke behind them, which they use for differing effect, let's just say, throughout the movie.
Yeah. And let's just say, I suppose, Dennis Hopper seems to have this endless supply of cigarettes, which he throws to them every now and then, so that could be another reason for their name.
Quite possibly, yeah. Oh, Dennis Hopper. We'll definitely be getting to his side of things.
Well, not knowing any other actors in it aside from Kevin Costner going into it, I was actually surprised when Dennis Hopper did turn up. I'm like, oh, okay. It almost seemed like an obvious choice for that kind of bad guy to get that actor.
Yeah. I mean, really, he's the only one I really recognized, I guess, other than Kevin Costner. I'm sure there are other ones I've seen, like, from time to time, I guess, around the place, but yeah, Dennis Hopper really did stand out the second he first turned up when they're attacking the floating city that Kevin Costner ends up with his jar of dirt.
Yeah, that's right. His bag of pure dirt. That's right. The guy that eats it and goes, yeah, that's pure, right? But and then we sort of get the mention for the first time of dry land. This a big plot point, I suppose, that ends up becoming what they're searching for, I suppose, or trying to get away from the others that are trying to find it. But yeah, it doesn't waste time doing that. But the thing that I was worried about when they went to this sort of, I suppose, floating village, I was just worried, oh gosh, is the whole movie going to be set in this little village? As I mentioned earlier, it was sort of lacking that visual appeal at this stage. A lot of brown, everyone wearing very drab stuff. Look, I know it's post-apocalyptic, but yeah, I was sort of hoping to be a bit wowed at some stage, and I was glad when they did get away from this village, but even though it had to be bad circumstances. But
yeah, but the outfits didn't change though, and I think that's another one where we can compare it to another post-apocalyptic movie.
I think I'm getting the idea what we're thinking of there.
Very similar, very brown, drab clothing, but that's what you get. But I mean, while they're in that town, we just get a very just out of the blue people talking about a prophecy about dry land and a girl with a tattoo and just pure exposition just explained for you as part of this bar conversation between this random dude and the guy that turns out to be Dennis Hopper's henchman later.
Yeah, that's right. I think the lady who ends up taking away his traveling companion, I suppose, I think her name I think it's Helen. Is that it? I think that might have been it. I've just got lady here in all my notes, but I know she sort of runs some sort of store, and yeah, it seems to be quite empty. So you get the feel that they're running low on supplies. So yeah, I'm also thinking that's going to become a big plot point as well, possibly with Kevin Costner helping them. But again, at this stage, I was probably expecting more from the plot than actually does happen. But as you mentioned, with this whole dry land thing, it sort of becomes the holy grail that we know pretty early on they're trying to find.
Yeah, they certainly don't hide it, and when the smokers attack, and we first see Dennis Hopper sitting up on his throne, I guess it is, on this boat, just telling them all, and seeing what I pretty much is assuming is what is the universal stunt show for Waterworld, with the ski jumpers and jet skis jumping up ramps and over walls and into the middle, and it's like. Right, this is all very, very, elaborate and very extravagant for attacking what is essentially a ramshackle base with very thin walls. We find out it doesn't take them too much to actually start getting through the walls. So I don't really see the point of risking life and limb by ski jumping over these high walls. And they even do show some of the smokers that don't make it. And you think if they have that many if they had that many casualties every time they attack something, there shouldn't be that many left by now.
Yeah,
Surely.
exactly. It should just be Dennis Hopper sitting there with nobody to defend him. But yeah, you have pretty much hit the nail on the head. There are some other plot things in the stunt show, but yeah, very much the jet skis. And yeah, I think I even said to the person sitting next to me, not the obvious thing that it's like the Waterworld stunt show, but I said, I feel like watching one of those jet ski or dolphin shows at at SeaWorld, or not, the old ones they used to have. Yeah, very similar to that, because they always have to get it from every single angle just so you can see the jet skis from the bottom attacking. And yeah, let's just say the stunt show is very much like that. And I think possibly the stunt show managed to do a better job in a shorter amount of time. But
It did, and this was of course they had to turn up at the right time to they turn up at the right time so that Kevin Costner can be saved, since by this point we had discovered that he's a mutie and he's got gills and webbed toes. Just, but for there's nobody else like that. He's just is one guy in the world who has gills for some reason,
and has just
never
managed
really
to
explained.
Yeah, he's managed to develop this somehow. But yeah, it's interesting. I think at first they think he's a smoker spy, but yeah, as we find out, I think they even sometimes think they refer to him as Gill Man. I think Dennis Hopper even calls him a guppy at one stage. I can't remember, but yeah. So after he's captured, he gets into that cage, and it's funny. I was thinking, do you know how they use that sort of graveyard thing, which is being poured into this, I don't know, this weird mud type stuff. When the other one fell in, it all bubbled down. He fell into the cage and it just sort of floated on the top. And I'm like, hang on. Of course, so Kevin could be saved.
Yeah, it's like, you didn't have to lower the cage so slowly, guys. I mean, if you're going to sacrifice him so that he can turn into part of your muddy goop that you use to grow stuff in, why lower him so slowly? You still be able to pull the cage up after he's all dissolved. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's just no reason to go okay, start the unnecessary slow lowering of the cage.
It's got to allow
just
time
so we can build drama.
But I love how they call it recycling people. Yeah, just a couple of little things every now and then. I'd have a chuckle about what they were calling it and things. But as he's about to be recycled, I suppose, he's saved. And we see, I actually think we see Dennis Hopper for the first time as they're trying to escape then.
Yeah, that's why he's sitting in the boat, making orders, and it's a bizarre thing where the guy firing the machine gun. Why is it so funny firing machine guns? That was another common thing. Someone would pick up a machine gun, start firing, and start cackling insanely, just for the hell of it.
It's just so we could be reminded who the villains are, even though surely we could tell by the thing you've got in your hand. But yeah, it's very much and I think it probably reflects a lot in Dennis Hopper's performance too. They were very much treating this like pantomime, going as over the top as possible. Like I had to laugh his outfit with I think he had two eyes at this stage. He didn't have the eye patch at the start, but he's got this metallic cod piece and this weird kind of, I don't know, some kind of steampunk fantasy. But yeah, so, and I think to myself, wearing an outfit like that, it would have been hard to contain yourself or play it somewhat serious.
There is no doubt that Dennis Hopper's having a good time in this movie, so at least somebody is. Oops, don't better give too much away.
But all this time, obviously we're getting these fights, and I don't know how much time we were into by this stage, but, we're getting all these sort of fights, and we're obviously finding out that this stuff happens on a regular basis. But I'm still wondering if this is all setting up for a bigger plot. Okay, we know they want to find dry land, and he ends up escaping with this Helen, we'll call her, and the kid. A Nola virus or a cola virus or whatever.
Enola, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was it. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, surely the plot of this, movie that's still got 2 hours to go isn't going to be them just trying to find dry land, or please don't just have it be attack after attack. But as we find out, it does kind of drag a little bit. And I'm not talking about the boat in the water, but yeah, from here on we're sort of what could have been a good time to start revealing like the exposition about Helen and the girl. That ends up happening, what I noticed, like half an hour from the end of the movie. So it was quite weird how this part of the movie was just very much him being hostile and rude to them. Yeah,
and some very icky moments in amongst that as well. Like, early on when he's saying that he's basically has to throw one of them overboard so the other two can survive, and immediately goes that he's going to basically throw the child overboard. So Helen offers him her body, and you're going, okay, that's Not, I feel icky watching that.
And like
Yeah.
interesting, like because you find out afterwards that she's not actually Enola's mum, like she's just someone caring for her. But it seems interesting, like that she'd even think to put her body. Yeah, it's a really it is quite strange, and I don't know if it's here or a little bit later on, but you've got that crazy, I call him the crazy pirate guy that comes aboard and that pretty much ends up wanting to buy the woman in charge, but like is looking the little girl up and down, and then turns around and says, "How much for them?" And very icky scenes in that sort of section.
Yeah, kind of like negotiates for some paper or whatever, pure paper, to have half an hour with Helen, and then just goes, "How about with the little girl instead?" I'm going, "No, come off it. That's just wrong." I mean, I don't really. That was just like, I'm glad that didn't last too long, but seriously, that even need to be there?
And the interesting thing, how he did go downstairs with Helen, and then Kevin Costner ends up breaking in to sort of save her. But you think to yourself, why? I don't know if he was supposed to be setting up some elaborate plot. Okay, we'll get her down there with him, but it wasn't. Yeah, there's many ways that he could have got rid of this guy and still managed to get those pieces of paper. Plenty of opportunities.
And it turned out he had trunks full of old National Geographics and other magazines anyway, so it wasn't like he was short on paper.
Well, I think I saw one that had TV Week or TV Guide or whatever it was in America, and Dynasty, an ad for Dynasty or something like that. I don't know if it was supposed to be a reference to the TV show, but I'm like, God, he was willing to put her through that for that. But that's the thing I was wondering at this stage, and I think it might have been the case. Kevin didn't know about the tattoo at this stage, did he? Because he wouldn't have said to throw the girl overboard. I don't think he finds out about it until a little bit later.
Yeah, because he spends this entire time pretending that he knows where dry land is, and he's promising that he's going to get them to dry land until he finally admits that what he does is he dives down to the bottom of the ocean and scoops up dirt from way down there, because he's got gills and webbed toes, so he can swim underwater perfectly fine. When they finally do start bonding, which takes a very long time for any sort of anything to happen between these three main characters that we get to spend a lot of time with on a small boat.
And very monotonous type
nothing
scenes.
Else.
Yeah, very monotonous type scenes. Like you're almost sort of waiting for the jet ski crooks to come back in again. So it gave it some kind of action or stirred the water.
Yes, please bring us the smokers, bring us Dennis Hopper, so we can actually have something happening and not just Kevin Costner snarling his disapproval at everything this woman and girl does.
Well, I was actually, even though it wasn't necessarily a good scene or a fun scene, I did welcome it when we finally went to Dennis Hopper's lair, I suppose you call it, or barge or boat or whatever. And
the Exxon Valdez.
Yes.
Oh, what a joke that we find out at the end.
And then the thing is, I was gonna, and the one that even I think we find out at the end too, that they're all smoking everywhere, and there's a big sign on the side of it going "No smoking."
Yeah.
But funny, got to have a visual gag. But the thing I really appreciate is when I think it's from Blues Brothers, is it the Peter Gunn theme? When that
the Peter Gunn theme,
I really appreciate that, and it was almost a tone that even though it was unexpected and so out of place, I almost thought, this movie could have been so much more fun if they'd used popular music or something, a kind of rock soundtrack or something, I don't know. But it was very out of place, but I don't know, kind of welcomed at this time.
Well, I think they're trying to show, everything with Kevin Costner and everything out in the water is all so quiet and subdued, and even tells the girl at some point that, she needs to stop talking, or she needs to listen to the world. Oh, I can't hear anything. That's because you talk too much.
Yeah.
And then
really
it cuts
so
to this insane posse of bad guys, and they jump into this old car to drive around below decks in this giant oil tanker, and for no reason the Peter Gunn theme starts playing. Yes. Going, I like that. There's actually something in this movie that I'm enjoying.
Yeah,
but it's also, dude, that's a Peter Gunn theme. What are you doing to it?
Yeah, exactly. It probably shouldn't be in the movie, and it's funny because Universal is also the Blues Brothers. So I'm thinking, hey, they might have had the rights to that song for a while, that to use it up. But I think it's sort of after that bit there that Kevin finally notices the tattoo. But from what I remember, he still ends up, he's so sick of them, he still pushes the kid overboard. So the tattoo mustn't really mean much to him, probably because, as we find out, dry land isn't what they all think.
Yeah, well, exactly. He has no idea, and he really doesn't care. So I mean, I've got no idea why he didn't find the first place he could to drop these women off or let them go with the other crazy guy that turns up out of nowhere in this world full of ocean. Like the chances of running across anybody in these isolated boats has got to be 1,000,000 to 1 anyway.
And
so I don't know how they keep finding each other.
Oh, I know, and especially as that becomes a big plot reveal at the climax of the movie, if you can call it that. Yeah, I often think that people just somehow appear when they're when they're in trouble. But yeah, so he still pushes the kid overboard. But we're talking about icky scenes. I know they were saying to him something about, I think the little girl said something, you should cut your hair. She was just mucking around. And then there's one part where Kevin's getting so mad that he ends up pinning Helen down and cutting her hair. It was a really...
With a machete, yeah.
Yeah, it was just quite an uncalled for, it's obviously him going, how would you like it if your hair was going to be... Oh, it was just quite strange.
And then the girl just goes, oh, you're not nice, you're a mean guy. And the next scene, both Helen and Enola both have their hair cut.
Oh, I know.
It's like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
That he's so bad he cuts their hair, which is a big punishment or something. The one thing I suppose I did admire about Kevin Costner was when he was trying to avoid them. He kept finding different spots of the boat to stand on in order to get away from them.
That's actually
off to the side or up on top of the mast or hanging off the back.
That's probably the tension between him and the castmates anyway. They're all so used to trying to get away from him, maybe. But even though, like I mentioned earlier, how he does end up coming down and I suppose saving Helen in a really inappropriate way, but and he stabs that pirate. Yeah, it's actually probably the first time Kevin actually shows any sort of compassion for her, even if you can call it that. But yeah, it's not that we're seeing any kind of love interest start. Like, I was quite surprised that this wasn't nominated in the Razzies as least dynamic screen couple for that year.
It certainly could have gone there, but I mean they do start bonding when he uses himself as bait to catch a giant sea fish or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then then he's bonding with the little girl over the grilled monster fish steaks that he's making.
Meanwhile, they're just stuffing their face because they haven't eaten for ages. But yeah, that again was a really out of place scene when this almost something like a creature out of Jurassic Park comes out of the water. And I'm kind of glad they didn't give us the slaughtering of it. And the next shot we're seeing seeing him cooking it up. But I'm like, gosh, it might have actually given the movie some action. But as you said, he sort of sits down now with the girl mainly, and I even looked now and it was about 1 hour and 10 into it, and I'm thinking, oh wow, we're finally getting some background on the female characters. The whole time has been pretty much him not wanting to get to know them.
Well, you find out that's where he finds out both him and the little girl are both different in this world from everybody else, and they start bonding, and the hard-ass fish man turns out he has got a heart of gold when he starts teaching Enola how to swim.
Insert swim montage here, pretty much. But not saying underwater scenes necessarily have to be you can get well done underwater scenes, but these definitely were not it. There was nothing. I know he's teaching her to swim, but there could have been some really interesting underwater photography they could have used for this. Something a bit more graceful, but no, not really. It's just sort of something to plod the movie out a little bit longer.
Because there was nothing else there. They could have at least put in just some fish, just to add a little something to this. He makes a comment, I think, because Helen comes out and basically just going, "What are you doing with her in the water? What about those giant fish monsters that we ate last night?" He goes, "Oh, don't worry, they're asleep. It's daytime. It was daytime when you caught it yesterday. How do you know?" And that makes no sense. And there's nothing in the water with you guys anyway. So...
I know. That's when it screamed. Okay. That's when it screamed to me. This was filmed at Universal Studios in a tank. But or maybe we just think that because of all the evolution, I don't know, all the fish have died out. I don't know. And they've only these huge sea creatures. I don't know. But yeah, it was quite strange. But and I think it's even this point too that it doesn't happen often, but a couple of times at the start, and then sort of around this time when they the subtitles come up, they start using a different language. What did he say they called it? Something I couldn't hear it. They did say something about it sounded like Portuguese, but it wasn't.
It was like Portuguese Spanish or something.
Yeah, something where
just,
they've combined, and thankfully they didn't use that throughout the whole movie. But but again, we're an hour 10, hour 15 into it, and we're starting to reveal all this sort of stuff. I almost welcomed the exposition that happened in the bar in the earlier scenes. At least we knew what was happening. It sort of seemed a bit too late to be starting to reveal a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I suppose this is also, I guess, the point where things kind of start happening because they come across that trading post where these people are waving strangely. So it turns out the smokers are there, and it turned all the corpses into puppets.
And they're just pulling the strings. They're having a cigarette. But the thing I did laugh though. Like, it was very clever and very funny. But I'm like, did they really need to go to all that effort?
Yeah, considering they had all the jet skis underwater tied down. I don't know how I didn't see those smokers attached to any sort of breathing tube, so they could hold their breath for a very long time.
Oh yeah, I was thinking
these guys on these submerged jet skis.
They wouldn't want to have to keep them under there for too long. But yeah, that's like I was saying earlier. I did appreciate those sort of parts where the jet skis came out from underwater. It looked visually quite good. But again, we get the chance to have as much jet ski footage as possible in this part as well. But
yeah, again, and what they're trying to catch his boat with a fishing net held between these jet skis, but of course he avoids it and flicks it back at them and gets them all caught up in the jet skis as he goes off, and we find out that even with one eye, Dennis Hopper is a really good shot. I don't know what he shoots. I don't even know what he shoots, but it doesn't actually seem to do much. Kevin Costner, just every now and then he'll hold his side because he kind of like remembers that he's meant to be injured.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but then you got all this blood. It's funny because I did this shot where the blood's all trickling down the side of the boat, and here's me thinking, oh, the sea monsters are going to come, or something's going to happen. I'm again thinking a better plot than what actually does happen. But yeah, and then I think it's pretty much the next shot where he's just sitting there bleeding, and the little girl goes, "Is he hurt?" And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Didn't you see what just happened?
Yeah, he gets up and they show this blood just all over the thing behind him. But again, like after that, every now and then he'll just like hold his side.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason. And then when inevitably, he goes underwater to show Helen the real world down beneath the waves, and they're going through the sunken underwater city on the longest rope I've seen since Titanic 2.
Yeah.
Because that rope just keeps on going. Of course, once they go down there, that gives the smokers their chance to catch up and find the girl and torch the boat and try to kill Helen and Kevin Costner. But oh no, he can share his breathing with her underwater since he's got gills, basically by just locking lips with her, because why not?
And they've got to have an excuse to kick off the love interest in some way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the love interest, they come up. They come up from underwater after the smokers go. The boat's been trashed and burnt. They're sitting there in the middle of nowhere. Helen's going, "No, this is it. We're going to die. We just get to sit here and die." And then suddenly, "Hey, let's have sexy rumpy pumpy time." Why? That makes no... I mean, I really don't care, because you guys have had very little chemistry between you up to this point. Or even after this point. Because Helen keeps looking like she's just slightly surprised and disapproving at pretty much anything she looks at. She very much had a very samey expression most of the way through this movie.
And maybe locking lips underwater sort of changed the way she felt. Maybe she got some of that gill magic. I don't know, but yeah, it is quite. It's almost like the movie felt like it had to have a love interest between the two, the two leads, and it almost felt unnecessarily, especially in a movie of this kind too. And it was also around here that I was feeling quite underwhelmed, because even though we found out what dry land is, and okay, fair enough, it's an underwater city, you're still thinking to yourself, oh, okay, dry land's been revealed. What's going to happen now? I was almost thinking, what is left to happen? But obviously, fight the bad guys. But I don't expect the balloon man to just float in. The guy that we see early on that takes off in his balloon to get away from the bad guys in that village. And we were saying how people just stumble onto them. Well, he just seems to float in just like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I was also thinking that because, like he accidentally sets the balloon off, and tries to help Helen and Enola escape, but they can't get to the balloon in time. And then we just do not see him again until, hey, we need someone friendly to turn up and save these guys. Here he is. Oh, I wouldn't have found you if it wasn't for the smoke from your boat. I would have thought it'd be like smoke means these smokers. You would have been avoiding smoke
Yeah.
like the plague, dude.
Oh, and the thing is, we find out that he hasn't just been floating around in his balloon on his own. He takes them to sort of not another village, I suppose, or I think he takes them to another boat where all those other people
Yeah.
are.
A bunch of survivors from the attack earlier.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
Obviously, went back to the city once he got control of his balloon thing, which stays up for a very, very long time.
Oh, I know, and especially it's funny. It's around this time I started to notice all the shots where it's filmed in front of like a green screen, like or anything with the sort of sunset or the clouds. A lot of shots like that towards the end, and I always had a bit of a snicker.
Yeah, and oh boy, and look, the other survivors from the attack when they talk about they need to go and save Enola from the smokers, like they're all bastards, and none of them are at all sympathetic. And I don't know when they stopped calling Kevin Costner a mutie or whatever and started calling him the Mariner, which is just like, a superhero name. But they're all saying, oh no, we don't trust the Mariner. Then why are you calling him that? That's like a term of respect or something. I don't know.
It's like this is what happened when they had a change of directors. Someone just slipped the line in. They didn't realise that it wasn't consistent. But yeah, it was strange. I just called him Kevin the whole time because we don't actually reveal him to have a name, do we? Aside from a mutant.
Yeah, I mean he's the Mariner.
Yeah,
I mean,
Gillman sounds.
You think
better.
of the Marinara or Guppy.
Oh, that's
Guppy.
right. Of course, Dennis Hopper had to say all those little witty one-liners, but
Yeah.
but yeah. So we find out now, pretty much, as I said, what's the movie got left to do? But we find out that Kevin's got to pretty much go and rescue Enola, who was stolen by the smokers. But they're suggesting all these terrible things like cutting the skin off her back and pulling it over a globe so they can work out what the map means and all these terrible things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, and then like they're all doing that, and Dennis Hopper comes in and offers her a smoke. Which again, was a
You're
nice
never
touch.
too
He's
young
trying
to
be
start.
friendly.
But they've just been, they've got her in this terrible cell and she's all chained up and Dennis Hopper goes, oh, get those chains off her. We're not barbarians.
Yeah, just being the charming boss of the insane bad guys, because every other bad guy is just a laughing maniac, apparently.
Yeah, but even
That's
more so
what
when
we
it comes
find out. Yeah, especially when they've got a machine gun.
I do like how Kevin Costner does end up getting aboard when they open the what do you call it? The gate or whatever to let through the jet ski, and the guy's like, oh, take it easy, and he just runs him over. So a very clever way. He seems to get in quite easily, and also I don't know if it was, I think it was after that where he climbs up the wall, and I'm like, with very conveniently placed handholds the entire way up.
And then he climbs to the top, sees some jet skis down below, and then jumps back down again for simply to drag those guys underwater and drown them. I mean, look, there isn't much. Even once they know that he's on board, no one actually seems to be able to stop this one fishman army of Kevin Costner from doing whatever the hell he wants. But then to and including blowing up the entire boat.
But then, as we've seen, the baddies are pretty incompetent in everything they do. Like, you just have to see when Dennis Hopper comes out with, his couple of things of cigarettes, and they're all, clambering over each other to get stuff. I don't know. I don't think they had the best brain capacity. Pretty hopeless, I think.
And he throws down the can of Smeat.
Oh, yes.
What? Okay, they couldn't. This is partially filmed in Hawaii, where I believe spam is a big thing. They couldn't get the rights to use spam. They had to use Smeat.
I know, how random.
And actually, one thing before everything, started going explodey, heroic, savey stuff was when he sends them all back down below deck, and just these such dodgy CGI giant oars come out from the side of this oil tanker, and they start rowing it, and it's going, A, that looks so ridiculous, B, even with that many people, that's just not happening. It's just like, I know there needs to be a level of suspension of disbelief in this sort of movie, but that's a step too far, guys. That's like something from a cartoon.
Here I am remembering the really obvious CGI bit now. but I thought it was funny because, you've got Dennis Hopper realizing that Kevin's on board and he's like, get the oars, whatever, like we've got to start moving this. And I don't know, something that sort of lacks tension when it goes to a shot of this really slow moving barge with the oars coming out the side. It was just lacking that kind of suspense that you wanted.
And yeah, he's sending everyone to search for go off to search for the guppy, and yet Kevin Costner just basically walks right up the middle of the deck, down below where Dennis Hopper's been addressing his troops.
Yeah,
and it's just like, "Hey, I'm here. Give me the girl, and I'll go." And that's all he wants. He keeps it simple until he pulls out a flare and threatens to blow up the entire boat.
Oh, yeah. It's just here's me thinking, he's not going to end up doing it because what's he's going to do? But it seems like it's not necessarily one that kills everybody because I think even Dennis, when it does get dropped in, Dennis Hopper manages to survive. So,
yeah, as everything blows up and Dennis Hopper tries to escape in a seaplane and Kevin Costner's running around MacGyvering everything. That's the only thing I could think of. He would grab a spear and some rope and some wire, and he used an anchor to slide down a rope, and just everything he's handily nearby to do exactly what he wants to do. Not at all perturbed by the fact that also everything is exploding around him.
Yeah,
because that doesn't matter, because cool guys don't look at explosions. We do know that.
Well, the whole way through the movie, I'm just noticing how much of a gadget king he was. A gadget guppy, I suppose, or gadget gillman. He always seemed to have some sort of thing, like when he was getting attacked earlier and he just suddenly brings out that parachute or that sail to get them out of the situation. But it seems like he's not going to be the one to save the day. It seems like the balloon man seems to have arrived again. With his, because I think we see a bit earlier where Helen goes, "No, we can't let him go and do it on his own. Let's go and help him." And here's me thinking they'll come in early and sort of, I don't know, contribute a little bit more. But no, they pretty much just come to hoist him up onto the balloon. Which it's funny, that balloon seems to fly no matter what the weight limit.
Yep, and no matter what's happening underneath it, a giant ball of fire shooting heat straight up into the air, which should have thrown that balloon flying and sent everyone tumbling out. But no, it's completely unaffected by the physics of the real world, which is handy. But they've got to let Kevin Costner single-handedly save the girl.
Oh, yes, of course.
Even when we find out that Dennis Hopper has survived the explosion and plane crash, and he shoots something at the balloon and causes the girl to fall a very long way back into the water. And Kevin Costner quickly fashions a bungee rope to save her from these converging jet skis. It's like, come on, really? Oh god.
He always has to save the day in the long run. But the funny thing is, after that, all that rescuing, it sort of goes into sort of fantasy territory where, I mentioned those screens earlier. You've just got the balloon floating so easily across the screen and in the clouds. I felt like we were watching Chee Chee Bang Bang or something for a little bit there. Sort of went into this sort of fantasy mode. But as we're about to find out, there's the big reveal. And sorry, spoiler alert, they find real dry land. Well, Hawaii.
Yes, gosh, yep. They're asleep and they're apparently suffering. Everyone's there going, Kevin Costner pulls out the last drop of his fresh water and gives it to Enola. Oh, he's got a heart of gold. Whatever.
But Helen just so happens to have her eyes open to see that very touching moment.
Yes. And then he looks up and there's a seagull sitting on the edge of the balloon thing, and it's like, oh, land ho, yep, there it is.
And like I know I said earlier, I'm hoping something happens, plot wise. I wasn't expecting the reveal of dry land, but I'm glad it did sort of happen for them, because the whole time Kevin Costner was being so cocky about knowing exactly what dry land was, so it was kind of good that he was sort of proved wrong. But as we find out. Well, yeah, because the love interest between him and Helen has blossomed. They can't keep their hands off each other, and what's going to happen now? Because we find out he can't live in these sort of surroundings. We see a whole heap of horses run past, and we pretty much see a beautiful place for them to live and set up a life together. But no, he can't be there because he's a gill man. That's
right. That's not where he can live. It moves wrong, as he tells Enola why he's got to leave after we find out that we find the pair of skeletons in a hut.
And a great way for her to find her parents too, Enola. Just to cover. But she's more interested in the music box.
Yeah, she gets the music box, opens it up, and goes, "I'm home!" Great! How did you leave home in the first place? How did you end up halfway across the waterlogged world to end up in this dodgy city completely unharmed with a mysterious tattoo, which was a map back home? Did your parents tattoo you when you were a baby? And what did they tattoo you with? That would have been absolute torture for you. That would have hurt this little baby so much to have map home tattooed on her back. Were they expecting her to leave? What? It makes no sense whatsoever. And we just get the shot of the horses to justify Enola drawing pictures of horses earlier in the picture. And then we cut back to Helen looking stunned and surprised.
Pretty much her expression most of the movie, actually. She might have just thought, what have I signed myself up for? I can't get out of it now. But you think it's going to be a big reveal and sort of thing. But no, pretty much they just sort of decide that Kevin has to be in the water and off he sails.
Off he sails, yeah, that's it. And off he goes, sails into the closing credits.
Which actually went for, if I am right, 7 minutes. And
indeed, there was a lot of people in those closing credits admitting to what they did.
I know, there's a lot of names in this too, and it got to the point where, because as we have to watch to the end in the Rufus project, much to my disgust sometimes, I was kind of expecting the music to sort of change a little bit. No, we just get our musical score, and it's funny because I'm sitting there thinking to myself as I'm hearing this, going, I wonder how many people had left before now, or had when they first saw this in cinemas. I don't think many people would have appreciated this music from these 7-minute credits. They were still awake. I don't know.
How many people, like our baseline review, left after 37 minutes? We don't know.
I'm surprised he made it that far, but anyway, we got through it. So I think our thoughts are sort of a bit obvious.
Well, I think, I guess, if it's required, I guess it is. It's something we need to do. We should probably move on to those thoughts. Now, you did pick this movie, Kristian, so I shall go first. And say, well, he may have got the worst supporting actor Razzie, but I did find Dennis Hopper entertaining. And we're mentioning before about a movie that this seemed heavily inspired by. So I'm guessing the costume designer for this movie watched Mad Max and thought, that'll do. Mm-hmm. Or Mad Max and water. And that's about it. This is a terrible Mad Max ripoff and a terrible movie. It's not redeemable.
Wow, I wonder if I will redeem it. But look, it's funny, we were thinking the same thing, and I think I even went into this movie with having not seen it going, this is going to be Mad Max on water, isn't it? And yeah, probably more so to me, it reminded me more of Mad Max 3, Beyond Thunderdome. And I suppose you could say that Dennis Hopper's camp Dennis Hopper's performance matches Tina Turner's outfit in some camp way. But this movie really just plods along, like very little substance. And any time it tried to elaborate, it was these scenes that would come along, these action scenes that would come along, probably half an hour too late, when we've just had to put up with 30 minutes of them hating each other, I suppose, on water. Mm-hmm. So, look, it was a very boring first hour. It was probably, I said to my friend I was watching this with, this would have to be the least colourful colour movie I've ever seen. Very drab, as you said, the very Mad Max type costumes. And it sort of maintains this whole way through. And as you said, Dennis Hopper definitely brought something to it, and he sort of brought the level up a little bit, but he couldn't really help a movie that was sinking and that was plodding along. Look, it was 30 minutes too long, and I think that's even being generous to it. Very long movie. And look, Trevor, I believe what you say and am going to agree, and I say this movie is irredeemable.
There we go. Waterworld from 1995. Sorry, Kevin Costner. Not redeemable. Now, we actually got a couple of extra opinions. As always, I put a call out for people to have their say, and a few people got in touch with us. First up, Tim said, on the one hand, it led to The Postman. On the other, Dennis Hopper is always great. Brett said, I don't know, all the boxes are ticked, and yet it misses something big time that I can't put my finger on. Taste? Maybe the tone is just too depressing too often. I mean, this may be where the world is actually heading. And finally, Susie, my lovely wife and co-host of What the History, plug. I just watched the last half hour of this with Trev. It was an hour too long. It's a no from me.
Love it. Oh, God.
So, pretty much across the board, no one's coming up to redeem Waterworld.
I'm actually look. I haven't seen its IMDb rating. I think you might have mentioned it earlier, but I'd be surprised if you could find someone that gave it 5 stars.
Fancy you should say that.
Good
Because
segue.
we may not have been able to redeem Waterworld, but we do try to finish on a high point. And so even if we can't redeem it, we like to try to find someone who did. So I went back to Amazon and I found this review. The title of this review is Great Movie. I know this movie has received some really rotten reviews, but I really enjoyed it. The scenery is fantastic and Costner does a pretty good job acting in it. I love the girl in it. I've forgotten her name, but Dennis Hopper makes the movie. His acting is a little over the top, but he's a good bad guy. I highly recommend this movie. 5 stars.
Dennis Hopper's a little over the top. Oh, okay. Well, they exist, so they can have that movie. Trust me. I don't want to have to watch it ever again.
All good. As we say, people out there can enjoy whatever they want to enjoy, even if they're wrong.
Yeah, just don't make us watch it again.
Yeah, I will not be watching this again. That's pretty straightforward. Isn't it? So, not redeemable for Waterworld. We should probably look at what we're going to watch next time.
Oh, no pressure on you to try and get us out of this slump.
Well, we'll see how we go. Now, first of all, I'll let you know, this movie only goes for 94 minutes, okay?
Yes.
So that's a good start. Now, I did mention something last time in our Zoolander 2 chat, and then found myself thinking that I might have got it wrong. So I went back and checked and realized that we haven't actually visited this particular franchise yet this year. So no beating around the bush with this one. We are going to check out the 2007 franchise sequel, Resident Evil Extinction.
I knew it had to come, Trevor, and hey, good on you picking up that we hadn't done it for a while. So I think I'd rather one of these than another Blood Rain. I don't know.
Well, thankfully, there's still no more Blood Rains.
Oh, thank
and
you.
I really hope it stays that way.
Yeah, anything I can do to help stop him do it. But okay, Resident Evil Extinction. So yeah, let's see if we can redeem it. I don't know its history. I don't know if it's considered a dud, but I definitely think we need to visit one of those movies again.
People seem to have a love-hate relationship with the Resident Evil franchise, but you know, we get Mila Jovovich back. She's always good for some form of entertainment.
And let's see if it's redeemable or not. So
yeah, well, the last time we had Mila Jovovich, she was in a redeemable movie, being Zoolander 2.
Oh yes, exactly. So I didn't think we'd have her back so soon, but she might be needed.
Absolutely. Well, she takes the lead this time around. So if anyone out there wants to check out Resident Evil Extinction before our next podcast, I've had a quick look. It can be rented or purchased on Google Play, iTunes, YouTube, the Microsoft or the Sony PlayStation stores. So plenty of options.
Awesome. So yes, get onto that.
If you're overseas, you'll have even more.
And as we say, you know, you can watch what you want, but yeah, you might not want to revisit Waterworld. So you might want to look ahead to Resident Evil Extinction.
Yeah. That's another. We're doing 2 post-apocalyptic movies in a row, aren't we, Kristian?
Oh yeah, it wasn't even thought of. Look, why don't we just say this is hopefully the one that redeems the genre?
we can try. I don't think we've done too well with post-apocalyptic stuff at this point, so we'll see what happens.
Definitely, and as we say,
good.
Even if the movies aren't any good, the chats always are.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of things that are good, Kristian, I do understand that you've got a few events that you're hosting coming up very soon that people may well enjoy.
Definitely, and I don't even have my list handy, but I know there's many of them. We've starting off in September, we've got the return of my 70s and 80s parties, which are at New Farm Bowls Club. A lot of fun, a lot of great evenings on a Saturday. We're doing them once every 2 months or once every month. And we've also got some great cult movies like the 1985 cult classic Clue, Barbarella, Pretty in Pink, and some other great movies coming up, and dance parties. So hit christianfletcher.com on the internet or Christian Fletcher Events on Facebook, because there's just way too many to mention here.
Absolutely, but I do suggest that you perhaps look at the upcoming Rocky Horror screening on the 21st.
And that's another one that I should have... my head is just a jumble of events, but yes, it's definitely on there.
Yeah, not that I have any particular interest in that one at all.
Oh,
no.
Not at all. But definitely get along to that and experience it if you haven't already.
Oh, definitely come along. It's an event and it's so much fun. I'm looking forward to it so much. And if you want to check out some different stuff here at the Rufus Project, we don't just have this one particular podcast. We have another podcast I mentioned earlier called What the History that I do with my wife Susie, where every couple of weeks we take a couple of bizarre facts from history and tell them to you in a nice, short, jaunty, fun podcast. It's always lots of fun. And I am getting ready to get back on board with the YouTube channel. I'll just say life has been chaos recently, so I'm getting ready to start doing some more one credit challenges and more videos to go up alongside the YouTube versions of the podcasts as well. So on the Rufus Project on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Find our homepage, rufusproject.com. You can leave comments on all those places. You can give us feedback on those places, or you can send us an email to podcast@rufusproject.com. We would love to hear from you.
Definitely. And if you've got a movie to suggest, we've got many more we haven't tackled, I'm sure.
Oh, there's still a lot of doozies out there. I'll just say that.
Definitely.
And so I think on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up, put Waterworld behind us, pull the plug on Waterworld, you may even say.
Yes.
Ha-ha. Boom tish. And we will be back in a couple of weeks' time to discuss Resident Evil Extinction. So until then, enjoy.
Take a sample of her blood, then get rid of that. These clones are not working. The original Alice is the key. Find her, then we can return to the surface.
Sorry about this, Stevie.
It really is the end of the world.
What happened to it? Catcher must have taken it back.
My senses have detected Alice. Her powers appear to have grown at a geometric rate.
I can have a strike team ready within the hour.
Everyone is scared. Good thing we like a challenge.
Make sure she's dead.
I'm coming for you.
Shut her down.
Oh,
We fought the infection. We survived the apocalypse. And now we face extinction.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features. Kristian and Trevor on the case, watching movies from all over the place. IMDb says it's bad, but we want to know, is it fun to be had? Redeeming features.